One of the worst things about the constant rise in popularity of both anime and manga, especially for people like me who are chronically online, is that it's kind of become nearly impossible to totally avoid spoilers for popular series. Like real shit, spoiler etiquette online is a conversation people have been having forever. And can you argue things like Bruce Willis being dead in The Sixth Sense still being a bombshell spoiler in 2025? Or that Aerith might not make it all the way through FF7? I mean, both of these things are well over 20 years old by this point, and are already cultural touchstones enough that people know them without ever having seen those spoilers themselves in context. So it's a lot more understandable that people are willing to just talk about things like that openly. But these days online, you can just wake up in the morning, look at your Twitter timeline and see, I can't believe this character in Jujutsu Kaisen just died. And the shit is like trending in multiple different ways, so you can't avoid it. Hell, One Piece is the only manga I really make sure to stay caught up on because the world itself will just spoil it. Like, there's no way you can avoid the fact that Gear 5 exists because it's a mascot for the series. And it doesn't even appear until over 1,000 chapters in. I was in Japan last year at some random mall with a One Piece store that was just loudly playing the Egghead intro on a big ass monitor with a huge Gear 5 statue under it. Like, you cannot avoid the shit. Thankfully, I got dumb brain and forget things pretty easily if I don't commit them to memory, but sometimes it does just get rough out there. The biggest problem with spoilers, though, in a lot of cases, is that they can change public perception on a series without a lot of people having even seen those spoilers in context. Sure, that doesn't mean the thing still can't just be bad or something. I ain't gotta watch season 8 of Game of Thrones to make my opinions on it. I did 1 through 3 and that was good enough. But sometimes it can change the way I engage with something. Like if I know a certain character is gonna betray someone, I'ma watch their actions more closely than I would have before, you know what I mean? It makes you accidentally analytical, and it's hard to avoid doing that if you already know where things might be going. And on that topic, the hardest I've ever been spoiled on a manga that ended up affecting my entire read-through was today's video subject, The Promised Neverland. A series that, despite being largely a mystery in the first half of the story, was loudly talked about online during its publication for a few reasons. Some of the convo being positive for things like that mystery. And apparently, in overall intensity, the story didn't run away from, blending together action, suspense, and mystery all in one package. But as the manga went on and started to come to its ending, that conversation, at least to someone like me who was on the outside and not reading it, just saw the fans online change for the worse. It seemed like out of nowhere, Promised Neverland went from being a Shonen Jump smash hit with amazing reception to a story that was dumb, mid, wrong, stupid, and tons more negative words. This all seeming to stem from the protagonist of the series itself, Emma, being combined with a second season of an anime that is legendarily awful now in 2025. The fanbase falling out over the years and the series just now hitting its 9th anniversary this year, having a weird place in Jump's legacy. a place that I personally feel like is a little unfair. And with that said, today I want to talk about The Promised Neverland. And despite how some of the things I just said seem pretty negative, it's probably one of my most favorite series ever published in Jump. Running from August of 2016 to June of 2020, The Promised Neverland was a combo effort between author Kayu Shirai and artist Pazuka Demizu, running for 20 total volumes and, as of 2023, having sold over 40 million copies worldwide. It's got a 2-season anime that's, an English release with a full Viz box set, live action shows, light novels, art exhibits, a credit card. Like, the shit's popular. There's even this interactive website that obviously has not been updated since the end of season 1 of the anime. Like, one of the links straight up leads to hentai now. Anyway, interestingly enough, for author Shirai, this was their first real big attempt at a manga series, having only published a few one-shots before starting Promised Neverland with Pazuka. The duo having already worked on some of those one-shots and now starting their next big series together in Shonen Jump. Despite not having the most well-known name here in the West before Promised Neverland, Pazuka Demizu has been in the manga game for a long time and had already published a few small-scale series in more niche magazines. So I feel like it's safe to say her artwork had already refined to a point before beginning Promised Neverland in 2016. The two coming out the gates swinging with a first chapter that, in my opinion, is one of the best first chapters in Jump's entire history. Shirai's story grabbing your heart while Pazuka's art slaps you in the face. So, before we dive deep into the series itself and why I think it's one of the coolest things to ever come from Jump, let's talk about this first chapter and the first volume as a whole, setting up this hellish world where the wives of not only humans, but children specifically live a life of being born to die. Oh, and speaking of being born to die, I got stickers now of my dumbass little slime that my wife drew in 30 minutes when I started this channel 5 or 4 years ago, and it's now my brand, I guess. So if you want one, hit the Patreon and bam, stickers coming your way hot and ready like Lil Caesar himself. Now back to the video. Things are pretty idyllic here at the orphanage called Gracefield House. The kids who live here age between toddler to 11 years old, running, playing, and having fun together like a small family. Their playground being the huge forest that surrounds them. A small fence some ways inside being there to let the kids know that they're at the house's line and should probably stay on their side of the fence. Now, despite these kids all being orphans, they live together and love each other like I had said, a family. The trio of Emma, Ray, and Norman being the oldest of the bunch and, by extension, the big brothers and sister of the other kids. The ones who the younger kids can look up to and who the orphanage caretaker, Isabella, can trust to look after them. Her being a loving mom to each of the kids and, overall, them living a big happy family life together in their matching all-white clothes. Of course, since this is an orphanage, the kids need an education, and so you gotta have your daily tests. Yeah, these questions may be extremely hard, and the actual intensity of the test itself with its conditions are a bit intense, but hey, kids gotta learn. Also, the kids all have strange tattoos on their necks, 5 individual numbers that everyone just kind of accepts that they have without wondering what they are. Whatever. Anyway, while the kids live their daily lives as a big family, this is still an orphanage, and sometimes that means someone might get adopted. It's something bittersweet for the kids, especially ones like Emma, because since she's older, she watched most of them grow up. She helped raise them herself, their family. And now, on her 6th birthday, the little girl Connie is being adopted. Her leaving that same night and all the kids having to say their goodbyes. Problem is, Emma notices that Connie, being the airhead she is, forgot her favorite toy. Oh no! Emma grabbing it and sneaking out at night with Norman to the orphanage's front gate to try and make sure she gets it. And when they get there, it's quiet. No Connie, no mom, no adoptive parents, just a truck. But in the back of that truck, the 2 kids peeking inside to look for Connie find her dead, partially mutilated with a huge flower growing out of her body. Emma and Norman barely able to react and having to hide because something was coming. That something being, well, a fucking monster. A huge demon-like creature that brags about how much it loves eating kids. Before their mom, Mother Isabella, walks out beside him, the demon towering over her and talking about shipments. Emma and Norman watching in shock as they have to quickly realize that not only is Connie dead, she was killed by a demon monster, and their mom, the woman who had raised them, was shipping kids out like cattle. This orphanage they were growing up in, this happy life they thought they had, being nothing more than a glorified farm for demon overlords. Their lives being an illusion that ends as soon as their number is called. The series actually being, instead of your traditional battle shonen, a survival horror mystery with the battle of minds being the main focus, at first. The kids having to find a way to both outwit Mom and escape from Grace Fieldhouse. But before we start to talk about that story itself any deeper and where things could go from here, let's pause real quick to talk about one of my most favorite things about Promised Neverland. Something I assume caught both my and tons of people's attention right away. A thing that honestly just gets better as it goes, that being Pazuka Demizu's uniquely fantastic artwork. When you flip through the first chapter of Promised Neverland, you get hit with an art style that is, well, just super interesting. The way Pazuka draws heads, faces, body types, it's all very whimsical, maybe is the word? Like it almost has this weird Lisa Frank hyper stylized look to it that no other series ever has had, at least that I've seen. Now, despite Promised Neverland starting in 2016, if you take a look online, you can find tons of artwork from Pazuka, both the older and newer. Her having a Twitter where she posts drawings like weekly, and despite that art itself having changed as time's gone on, it's always had this super cool, wispy, watercolory coloring book feel to it. Like it's hard to describe in words what I mean, but when I look at characters like Emma and her big ass antenna hair, or Phil with his odd head to face proportions, I can't think of any other characters out there in the manga world that they would look similar to in the slightest. She does have a fully translated and released art book for the Promised Neverland, And not only does it have the color art in great quality, I unfortunately could not find any scans of it to use in this video, so some are a little but there's tons of shots in here that she just drew. No chapter attached to them or anything, just some extra art she had on hand because she obviously loves to draw. And I think that love really shines in The Promised Neverland, both in bigger double-page spread moments that have huge demons and sometimes huge action, but also in just the small moments of introspection with a character. And it makes for such a unique reading experience because, despite that style being so full of wonder, she also knows how to flip it on its head and draw things like the demon overlords that eat the farm children. Them looking huge, bestial, and like they could shred the shit out of a kid in seconds. Able to reflect that imposing fear in the facial expressions from the kids. Flipping the switch on her style to go from happy and bright to dark and oppressive in a moment's notice. There's that really famous page of Emma starting to slip up in Grace Fieldhouse and seeming sad while looking at a drawing by Connie. Mom catching onto it and lording over Emma, staring her dead in the soul and trying to determine if Emma knows more than she's supposed to. The panels cutting back and forth as they lock eyes, and Emma has to snap herself back into that happy style so she doesn't get caught. And that tension, that imposing threat to a little ass kid drawn in this style that's so unique, already made Promised Neverland something I had a hard time putting down. I had to see how these kids were gonna get the fuck out of this one. If they could overpower their wild ass mom and the demon farmers who own them. So with that said, and before we really get in there, I'm going to talk about the story basically in two major parts, with the first openly spoiling things from the first 13-ish volumes, and the second talking more about things from volume 14 forward as a whole. So if you've seen season 1 of the anime and watched season 2, you'll know what I'm gonna talk about, but also you won't because they cut so much shit from that. We'll talk about that later. Good God, we'll talk about that later. So there's some time codes below you can use if you need to jump around for spoilers or whatever. Don't worry, I got you. And now, going back to Grace Fieldhouse and the first 5 volumes of Promised Neverland, I really do still to this day think it's one of the most interesting and memorable starts to a Shonen Jump manga that there's ever been. Like I had said earlier, after the first chapter where Emma and Norman discover Connie's body in the truck, the series becomes half suspenseful survival mystery and half battle of wits between baby geniuses and their seemingly loving mother with a cold, calculating layer beneath her smile. Emma, Norman, and eventually Ray all working together to try and learn, well, literally anything at all about their situation in this orphan prison. What year is it? Where exactly is this orphanage? What is the world outside even like? Are demons in control? Do humans exist in a civilized way out there at all? The kids know nothing except that they are trapped in a farm under the unblinking eyes of both their mom and demon farm handlers, knowing that at some point in time, they will be shipped out as food for these demon overlords. This setup leads to an amazing back and forth battle where the trio both need to find a way to learn anything they can to help form an escape plan, while also trying to stay completely under the radar. Mama Isabella knowing that they might be onto the truth, but still needing to raise them as the cattle they were born to be. Her position at this farm and life itself at just as much risk from the demons as theirs if she fucks this up. The kids, being as smart as they are, use their pattern recognition skills to notice that the ones who do perfect on their daily tests, kids like Emma, Norman, and Ray, are still here and have become the oldest in the bunch, while kids who did worse on their tests, ones like Connie, were shipped out way younger, her only being 6 compared to their 11. So based on their rankings in the tests matched with their average ages, they figure out that the dumber kids get sent out ASAP, and the smarter ones, the kids with the biggest brains, are kept here at the farm longer than anyone else to mature and develop, to be nurtured as prime cattle until age 12, and in true demon fashion, letting their brains grow as big as possible to feed to their lord, it being spelled like this. I fucking love the unreadable name trope to describe how otherworldly someone is. It's so easy to do, but I mean, it's cool, so I'm not complaining. Big fan of how it's used in the Kaseki series. Someone's name is lost to the world, and so they'll be like, oh yeah, this is my friend. And everyone's just like, what the fuck did they say? What was that? Like, that gives me goosebumps. I love that shit. Shout out Ichibei in Bleach. That's literally his power. Anyway, with Emma, Norman, and Ray all being 11, they're next on the chopping block, meaning escaping now is more important than ever. The issue is, Emma, our main character, is, well, a Shonen Jump main character. She's clever, she's bold, she's loving. She can be a bit intense sometimes when it comes to achieving her goals. But, like any true shonen main character, she's got a huge heart. And knowing that her entire family is at risk of being demon food, despite her time being very limited, she can't leave the other kids, wanting to escape with everyone, with her family, no child left behind like she's Bush, and refuses to leave if they can't find a way to bring along the whole orphanage. Meaning kids aged from like 2 years old all the way to 10 gotta be convinced that not only is their mom evil, they need to run away together and live in a world they know nothing about, with the oldest person looking after them being 11 years old. All the while having to still stay totally under the radar and as inconspicuous as possible so Isabella doesn't catch on. Forming their plans in secret with her bringing in backup. The, over-the-top Sister Crone. Another mother candidate who is here to watch over the kids while working towards her own goals. Them both answering to a higher-up older lady called Grandmother. Coming from a whole ass system that trains potential moms to be the farm leaders for demons, this in a way being the only form of long-term survival in their lives as cattle, even if, you know, it means raising babies to eventually be eaten. This whole initial setup, the undercover jailbreak being orchestrated by 11-year-olds so they literally don't get ate, having to outwit their smart as hell mom and demon farm overlords to survive is, like, such a strong start to any manga series, let alone one that was running in Shonen Jump. Now, don't misunderstand, this isn't something like, whoa, they kill kids here and no other Jump series goes that far, because that's just not true. But there is a very unflinching and in-your-face explicitness in Connie's body. Like, it's just a normal little 6-year-old who's been killed and is partially mutilated, about to be eaten by a freaky-ass monster. Two defenseless 11-year-olds able to do nothing but stare in horror. So there's a level of stakes being raised from second one that creates this overwhelming sense of dread in the first few volumes. Despite Promised Neverland running and jumping, absolutely being a shonen series, especially as it goes on, that sense of real violence waiting behind the kids never really leaves after that first chapter. And even though Emma and the crew are freak beasts in their own right, super smart and super agile despite being normal humans, when their plans hit a roadblock, when Isabella or Crone steps in their way and toys with them, that sense of dread creeps back in hard because you remember, oh, right, these are actual children, like little babies basically, and they can get murked literally whenever. Knowing that the story opened with a dead kid, so why would they be afraid to show you another and take someone out at random? And to add to that oppression, with the arrival of a new baby, Emma discovers there's a tracking device implanted in its ear, meaning that no matter what, even if they do escape, they're all being tracked like cattle. Grace Field House being their cage with seemingly no way to escape from. That small fence that stopped the kids before actually having not only a huge ass wall behind it, there's a trench the size of a riverbed surrounding the wall, meaning escape is seemingly more impossible than they could have ever imagined. I really do think that it's with these aspects, mixed with the interesting story and mystery that was getting bigger, carved Promised Neverland out a spot in Jump right away and hooked fans in both Japan and worldwide instantly. Like, the story translates through to anywhere in the world easily because at its core, it's just a good-ass mystery where you want to see if these smart-ass kids can escape their awful fates through brain power alone. Them having to train themselves and the other kids in secret by playing hide-and-seek tag in the forests around their house, helping boost their agility and evasion skills to get better without mom catching on, which is damn cool in my opinion. I actually love how there's no superpowers in the series at all. So these kids just gotta get good or they get ate. I've already talked about Emma and how she's a very traditional Jump protagonist. But next to her during this jailbreak are Norman and Ray, the other two main characters, kinda, who help look at the other sides of the situation Emma's pure-ass heart would probably not consider at first. Norman, the quiet, cool, and level-headed opposite of Emma, is similar to her in the way that he would do anything for the safety of his family, but he's also able to be a realist. He's able to look at the situations objectively and see how unrealistic it would be to try and save every kid. But because of that love he has for his family, that love for Emma, he's willing to risk himself if it means saving them, be it in one way or others, as we'll talk about later. Him getting shipped off from the farm early on, but it being kind of obvious that what he saw wasn't a demon waiting to kill him like Connie, which means Norman will return for SummerSlam. And to complete the trio, you have Ray, the obligatory shitbag of the group. The one who says it like it is and isn't afraid of being a bit of an asshole. him actually being the son of Isabella, who, remembers literally everything from like conception forward. Floating in the womb, being born and coming to the farm, knowing at birth he was born into the world as food, basically. Yeah, that shit is wacky. That's insane. Ray's role in the jailbreak arc is largely to kinda just cause tension in the story. Oh no, he's a traitor. Oh no, he isn't. Oh no, he might betray Emma because saving all the kids is a bad idea. Oh no, he didn't. Oh no, he burned the house down with him in the middle of— oh wait, nope, never mind, he didn't. It was a fake out. Like, despite him being a major part of the cast and one of the big reasons the kids do eventually escape, he's largely there to kind of be a voice of reason that helps Emma see both sides to a situation. Her usually still sticking to her choice that saves everyone and him giving in and backing her up. As the story goes on, I do feel like Ray gets the least of the trio character-wise, which is funny considering Norman gets shipped off in like volume 3 and doesn't come back until like volume 9 and more so like 14 to be honest. But I do still really like him. He's always there to have Emma's back and be that realist when she goes overboard following her ideals. But I just don't have much to say about him in the full long run. Anyway, with all of that said, and this jailbreak having been set up over the first few volumes, the big getaway begins. Emma and Ray lighting the place up, cutting off their ears to remove the trackers and tricking Isabella so she can't find them at first, using her radar and finding their ears instead, which is hard as hell. I love that these two 11-year-olds just willingly fuck their bodies up all for a like 10-second distraction, them leading the kids to the outer wall and making their escape. Except Emma finally did have to admit that, despite her wanting more than anything to free the whole family, bringing literal babies out into the world of the unknown was probably an awful idea. And the kids aged 4 and under stayed behind to wait in the safe haven of Grace Field, knowing that until Phil, the oldest of the babies, turns 6, the demons likely won't come back for harvest, giving them just under a 2-year time limit to find both the help they need and to come back for the remaining kids. Side note, but I fucking love Phil. What a real one. Dude is like 4 years old and figured out not only that mom was evil, the kids who were sent off are being killed. So when the jailbreak kicks off and the smaller kids need to stay behind, Phil is the one leading them and taking charge, holding down the fort until Emma makes it back. And I love it, dude. What a little badass. He's like Hayato from JoJo Part 4. Bro's the true hero. With this, their jailbreak is complete and the kids have broken out into the real world, a place they really don't know shit about. And when I was reading the manga for the first time, I was kind of fucking shocked. Not so much that they did escape or anything, but more that it was volume 5 out of 20 total. Meaning that even though Grace Field is what I had seen most of the fans talk about online, next to an arc called Goldie Pond, we'll get to it, this part was over and the bulk of the series, the other 15 volumes, were dedicated to life out in this world. And honestly, I think that hooked me much deeper than I already was. During the Grace Field arc, outside of the super fun back and forths between the kids and Isabella, the other biggest drive for the story is the mystery of what exactly this world is even like. if humanity even exists outside their walls. The kids having to use the little knowledge they can find in books to determine that A, despite it being 2042, the latest published book they own in their library is from 2015, and B, someone named William Minerva, a person who had seemingly written a large chunk of the books in that library, was leaving hidden codes in them for the kids to discover, meaning that, at least until 2015, there was some kind of human support from outside the walls, giving the kids a goal to try and accomplish after escaping the farm, to try and find this William Minerva, hopefully able to get the help they need to save the younger kids that stayed behind. When I was reading these chapters, that Minerva plot thread really cranked up my interest for what was going on in this world. And now getting to actually see it at just 5 volumes in, ooh buddy, I was pumped up. As for where the story would go from here, the kids now wandering these overgrown woods together as they make their way to map coordinates left by Minerva, I kinda love it. With Emma, Ray, and the kids now out on their own, knowing that demons live somewhere in this world with them, they gotta stay quick and quiet, moving from place to place while being fully aware of their surroundings. The demons themselves having sent out hunters to try and capture the escapees, wanting them alive because, at the end of the day, Grace Field produces the highest quality brains, so damaging them in any way could spoil the meal for Lord Garblename. The kids not only having to worry about these straight up animalistic wild demons that are roaming the forests, but also demon warriors who are on their trail, tracking them down like predator and prey, hammering it home on something that was already apparent, but is now a real problem for the kids, being they are still just fucking children. Like not standard Shonen Jump kids. Just because they're smart and athletic doesn't mean that without some form of defense, they can handle shit like this. Their fight for survival being much more dire with the small comforts that Gracefield gave them having been left behind. Now, in this forest survival arc, there is a major plot dump that not only changes the kids' perception of their world, but also sets up for the end of the manga eventually. The group meeting the demon duo of Sanju and Mujika, two seemingly friendly demons that not only go out of their way to help save the kids, but sit down and explain to them the world that they live in, the situation they were born into and are gonna have to find a way to overcome. And it's, pretty interesting to say the least. Thousands of years ago, the world lived in a violent coexistence between two separate species, humans and demons. Demons would, as they seem to do, hunt humans for food. The humans eventually banding together and fighting back against the demons that picked them off for their dinner, forming communities together and living in a state of constant war with those demons. Until one day, humans with the name Ratri somehow found Lord Garblename and made a promise with the demon race, the two forming a pact that would go on to change the next hundreds of years of history. This promise would split the two species between two worlds, the human race going to a whole different reality seemingly, while the demons stayed here in this world. But for the demon side of this bargain, the humans would help form and maintain farms for their cattle. This, of course, being places like Gracefield House. Emma, Ray, Norman, and the rest all born into a world where not only are they seen as food to be curated for taste, but that it's always been like this, and that it was a world seemingly formed by making a promise with, I guess, God himself. The rules of reality being changed to perpetuate literal child eating farms. So, to any other person, knowing that you'd have to find some kind of otherworldly being and get them to agree to change their own mind would be at least like somewhat upsetting. Shit, you gotta make a deal with the proverbial devil who damned kids forever to win your freedom. But of course, you have Emma with her positive ass attitude, and she's just like, aight, cool, sounds good, we'll find God then and I'll fix this shit right up. And that's it. Like, if Emma wants to save her family and stop this cycle of human farming that they were born in, no way around, she locks the fuck in and makes it her goal to find God. This is something I've kinda mentioned so far, but when it comes to Emma herself as a character, I really do love this blind optimism and willingness to do whatever, as long as it helps protect the people she loves. And to her, she is kind of willing to love everyone, to at least give them a chance and understand their side of things, be it Mother Isabella or the demons themselves. Those good intentions being the reason she wanted to save her entire family and not just escape and hope for the best for the ones back at the farm. So when push comes to shove and she has to become that guy trademark and outsmart, outrun, or even outgun her enemies, she'll still do it with a level of dedication, intensity, and forward thinking to try and have the best possible outcome for everyone. Willing to do things like I had said earlier, cutting off her own ear just so she can buy the kids a few more seconds during their escape. And no matter how the story continues to progress from this point, and even if I might have some disagreements with Emma later, I do really think she's a fantastic protagonist for this type of story. Her now on a mission to not only find Minerva and a way to save the kids back home, but to find God itself and change the way the world works, which I can't lie is just cool as hell. The group arriving at the coordinates left to them by Minerva and buried under the sand find a seemingly abandoned shelter full of water, food, beds, a garden. All of these things the kids had lost since leaving Grace Field. And also this guy here, the first other adult of the series that isn't Isabella or Crone, a man named ... Actually, he won't tell the kids his name, and by extension, the reader. Dude going literally unnamed for like the next 6 volumes or some shit. Mystery Man himself being in control of this shelter, having tattooed numbers of his own to show, like them, that he is an escapee too. And then demanding that Emma and the crew promptly fuck off before they just straight up outwit him and threaten to blow them all up together in a big suicide bomb because Emma refuses to ever fuck around. I don't have much to say about this small arc here, other than it adds more interesting questions with both the intro of the mysterious man and the fact that Minerva for sure left this bunker here for the escaped humans, but he himself is still MIA. The kids having to look for more clues about what move to make next. But while they make those moves for the first time since leaving Grace Field, they have a safe haven to rest in. Food, beds, warm water, the things you take for granted when they're just a part of your daily life. And through Pazuka's artwork, you see how much it really lights the kids' faces up, and how Emma is able to smile more because not only is her family safe, but they're happy. And I really just love these shots, man. Like, these poor ass kids do not deserve the shit they've gone through. So them just able to enjoy a nice bed in this immaculate style rules. That's some really nice heartwarming shit. But seeing as how we do need clues on what to do next, we gotta head back outside, and all of this is basically to say, yeah, we're going to Goldie Pond, you knew it was coming. The, without a doubt, probably most famous arc and possibly best arc of Promised Neverland? Emma being abducted by rich-ass demons and tossed into a child hunting ground. The series beginning to take its first hard genre shift and finally living up to its Shonen Jump name, as an all-out war breaks out in this seemingly abandoned town surrounded by strange loudspeakers. So it goes without saying that Goldie Pond changed the way tons of people looked at the series and would change the story itself from that point forward. The sneaky brain-based tactics of the kids now being combined with fucking guns. So just to set the stage with some basic information, Goldie Pond itself is a private hunting ground hidden away from the larger demon society. It basically being a playpen for the richer, more noble demon families. In the demon world, the highest quality meat comes from kids at the orphanage farms, Gracefield, Glory Bell, and so on. But that meat is usually reserved for only the royal family, and if that high quality meat is given to these noble demons, it's served to them, well, as food, prepared and curated seeing as how it comes from a farm. But these demons, ones that have been alive for over 1,000 years and remember the old days, back when they could hunt humans down with total freedom, before the promise separating the societies was even a thing, they still crave that thrill of the hunt, the feeling of tracking, killing, and eating a human all together, instead of just like, you know, going to the store and buying some off the rack. Them using their nobility to form a hunting ground that is Goldie Pond, taking escaped kids, abducting farm kids, however they can get them, tossing them into this abandoned town with no info on what's going on. And when the city's loudspeakers start to play their music, the song ringing out across the alleys and forests surrounding the town, the hunt begins and the demons come out, leaving Emma and the small but strong group of human resistance members to fight for their lives against some of the strongest demon nobles there are. The demons who love killing humans just for the fun of it, shifting this whole dynamic of the plot and going so hard. Not even to bring up its online popularity, but Goldie Pond to me when I was reading it was the total proof I needed that Promised Neverland was something unlike anything else before it in Jump. Yeah, it carried a level of intensity that a lot of these series shy away from with that kid death, but taking this super interesting mystery that was focused on survival horror, that amazing artwork that had been getting steadily stronger, and now smashing those together with a whole ass real battle arc that forced Emma, the good girl herself, to grab a gun and take some demons down with force. One thing I've said over and over in my videos by this point is that I truly, really love gun combat in manga, especially a battle shonen series. We live in a world of stand powers, devil fruits, dumbass isekai power systems, and magic in general. Which, I love all these to death, of course, don't get me wrong, I'm a shonen head as much as anyone else could be. But when a character exists in that world of weird shit and just fights by blasting dudes, it hits me right in my soul. And yeah, sure, the guns or bullets can even be magical in their base. Death the Kid's dual Desert Eagles go hard as hell, and Mista is forever my fucking dude. But when a person has to stand up to some weird shit, be it a shonen power or a demon itself, equipped with nothing but a gun and their brain power, that right there is my type of manga. I don't call myself the internet's biggest Trigun stan for nothing. And this pretty much just elevated an already 9 out of 10 series to near 10 out of 10 status. That scene where Emma jumps Luvis with all of the guns she's got tied up around the town center to unload from every angle is so good. And I don't really have anywhere else I want to fit this in later, so I'ma just do it now. But after Goldie Pond down the road a little bit, you have the short but hardcore ambush arc, where the kids gotta evacuate the shelter due to the Ratri clan's assassin Andrew, the White Devil himself basically. Bro and his Spec Ops crew fucking storming the breach to gun down children. The only two adults, Lucas, a survivor from Goldie Pond, and Yugo, old dipshit no-name himself that finally revealed his identity. Sending the kids off on their own so they can do the adults' job of protecting their futures. Loading the fuck up and systematically taking down Andrew's entire crew, blowing the hell out of him in a suicide bombing to finish the job. And maybe it's just me, but I think this is one of the coolest few chapter battles in Jump, dude. I swear to God. It's just these two tactical ass dudes mowing down troops with ruthless aggression, making sure the kids who had lit up their lives and given them hope can survive, so that they themselves can, hopefully, change this world. These two bombastic ass shootout arcs hitting back to back had me in a daze. But me sitting here glazing all of this aside, let's go back to Goldie Pond for a minute. There's something still here I want to bring up, mainly because down the road, it's going to become a much bigger topic in the plot overall. A thing that is easily one of the biggest dividers in the whole Promised Neverland's fan base. So like I had showed a bit ago, Emma pulls a fast one on the insanely strong Duke Luvis to get the drop on him in combat. They're fight blasting all through the town and getting tag team hits in from the other kids, and of course eventually Yugo himself. The team blowing his ass away and ending his 1,000-year-long life. But before this shootout really starts, while the other kids are still running around town and fighting the demons to stay alive, Luvis and Emma meet face to face before pulling any weapons to talk, to have a conversation at Emma's request specifically. By this point in the story, Emma has been through tons of shit. She's seen the death of friends. She's fought for her life over and over. And as we've seen from both what she's done before and after this, we know she will always stand up and fight to protect both herself and her family, even if she might hesitate on what she has to do at times. But no matter what, for Ray, for Phil, for Dawn and Gilda, she's gonna do it. But that doesn't mean she's grown numb to the pure heart she had before. That doesn't mean she likes any part of this. That she doesn't want to try and just live with her family and be happy. So when actually confronted with the fact that she might have to use violence against a creature that, even if it is a demon, it's one that talks, that has life itself. It's a person as much as Emma is. And if possible, she wants to find another option. One that lets both her live and help the demons satisfy their need for human meat. A choice to avoid more death and violence. Of course, Luvis gives no shits and just wants to hunt, eating the kids is a bonus for him, forcing Emma and the rest of the team to take him down. But that doesn't invalidate Emma's feelings of wanting to look for another option. And to an extent, I do agree with her. Killing something we consider sentient like us isn't something we're supposed to just be okay with. It's not a normal part of human life. But in Emma's eyes, even if the thing in question literally looks at her like food, it's still a person in a way, someone who has just as much life as Emma does. And even though she still is able to fight back when push comes to shove, there's nothing inherently wrong with asking that question and to look for peace. This problem, of course, gets a whole lot more complicated with the fact that this isn't really a person. It's a fucking whole ass monster that needs to eat humans to literally live. So the argument gets a lot harder to see both sides when one side is, literal demon monsters who want to eat us, and the other side is little baby children. Demons like Luvis who hunted for fun, pretty much deserving the death they got. And with that said, this is a large part of what the rest of Promised Neverland is about. This debate between humanity, demons, and how could they possibly ethically exist together maybe? Or should they wipe each other out? And where Emma herself falls in this debate. And where this video has kind of been a point-to-point story analysis where I give my own thoughts, from here forward, I'm gonna be jumping around a lot more to just talk about the major themes in this whole final saga of the story instead of the individual plot points themselves. Things not only involving Emma and the demons, but the return of Norman as well, and how he becomes, in a way, the biggest obstacle to Emma's ideal world of peace. After the escape from Goldie Pond, and even before that, Emma had been searching for the so-called Seven Walls, the place where, according to Mujika, she could find God and make a new promise, changing the rules their world works under. Having a small moment where they find an old temple and somehow Emma brain links with the past and sees some odd shit. Before a little dude with horns who reminds me of Mew from Pokemon tells her she came here the wrong way and needs to come in the right way next time, letting both Emma and the reader know that God does technically exist, I guess? So this journey she's on isn't pointless. There is a goal for her to reach because, well, we saw it. Now, with that said, and knowing that Emma's goal does seem to be something she can find, we are reintroduced to Norman, who didn't die earlier, oh my god, being instead sent off to a special research lab ran by Peter Rotry himself, the current head of the Rotry clan. A guy who betrayed his brother that had been secretly helping kids escape under the name William Minerva, meaning the help that did exist for the kids had been taken out by his own family. Norman's new life here being one under constant watch by scientists, both human and demon, under the Rotry clan control. Before at some point during this whole 2-ish year time span, breaking free with the other lab rats, forming a resistance group and creating their own safe haven in the demon world. A place where the kids can eat, sleep, and live in peace. A form of paradise in this hyper-hostile environment. Norman using his big-ass brain and the experimented on people from Lambda Lab to fight back against their demon overlords. to destroy farms and destabilize their civilized world, finally reuniting with Emma, Ray, and the other Gracefield kids, bringing the whole family, minus the one still waiting to be saved like Phil, back together again for the first time in years. But now, time's passed. Things have changed, and both Emma and Norman have been through a lot. This time obviously haven't taken its toll on Norman. Him being the boss of a whole army now. Fucking Punish Norman over here is already a demon, making a full commitment to completely obliterating the demon race. Not only escaping to the human world, no interest in coexistence, just outright taking them out for the sake of humanity. A thing that, logically, all the kids should be pretty pumped up about. Emma and the crew have spent the last few years on the run and in constant fear, with some of the kids in their group now being Goldie Pond survivors that have been out here even longer, their lives at risk for potentially years more before the Gracefield jailbreak. So when they hear that this constant fear is about to be taken out, that their lives can be their own again, they celebrate. I mean, why wouldn't you? If Norman's plan works, the farms end and the way to the human world could be open. They're all safe to live their full, uninterrupted lives. And obviously, despite these major reasons why it might be the best move, Emma is not thrilled about the idea. In fact, she's completely against it. Despite living in a world that is violently unfair to humanity, a world where demons not only eat humans, they operate farms to eat kids specifically. A farm being where Emma herself came from. She still doesn't agree with the concept of killing every single demon, opposing Norman and setting off on her own path with Ray to find a way that can let their two species survive together, while Norman moves forward with his plan of full-scale genocide. And around here, when this plot point happens and the story goes in this direction forward, the fan base of Promised Neverland kinda broke. So the big theme of this story, the conflict it was always going to try and create, is how it would deal with the idea of demons being actual conscious beings, people basically, that just also happen to be huge, powerful, and eat humans. Emma, from the early chapters and through the whole series, has always been firm in her pure-hearted beliefs. She refuses to abandon any family member at the farm initially. She forces Hugo to lower his guard and to listen to her as a person, not as a threat to his survival, by just wanting to help him. She took the time to try and come to terms with Duke Luvis and Goldie Pond. Like, no matter what, she obviously values life itself and doesn't want to see it be wasted for any reason. So when not only is she told by Norman himself that he wants to wipe out the demon race, she sees all her friends cheer and celebrate, crying from joy at the idea that their long fight might finally be over. And she doesn't really know how to feel at first. By all logic, for her survival, the demons are a problem. But by this point, she's been out here for almost 2 years. She's seen the demons in their natural lives. Normal families who, yeah, eat human meat, but still have their own life. Children who, like them, were just born into this world as it was, and despite it not making sense, she doesn't want to kill all of the demons who are, in a way, not exactly responsible for their suffering. And instead, she wants to make that promise to find the 7 walls and save the humans still in farms. And as a reader and stepping out of the manga for a minute and looking at this like as a whole, it's a lot to take in and contemplate. On one hand, yeah, Emma isn't wrong at all. Killing innocent kids in a war that has nothing really to do with them is wrong. It's evil and just keeps a cycle of hatred going. You'd be killing people who, despite them being demons in a world that eats humans, don't really conceptually understand why that world is wrong to live in. But on the other hand, they have literal baby farms, like actual baby production lines, where they send defects to the burn factory and dispose of them like garbage. And to the ones who aren't considered useless, they're sent to either a real farm where they live the grace-filled life until harvest, or are sent to a mass production farm. The kids' brains damaged and basically being in a living coma, strapped into feeding tubes and fattened up for mass consumption across demon society. Like it's hard to give the demons a pass here. But, I don't think it's wrong for Emma to have this viewpoint. It isn't wrong to not blame those innocent demon kids for a world they had no say in. So instead, Promised Neverland asks a really hard question to try and make an answer of. That being, what the fuck would you do? Obviously, there are real-world comparisons you could try and make, be them old or ongoing, but that comparison starts to fall apart when you consider that one side eats humans and are big-ass monsters and the other are babies. I mean, I guess you could draw a line between big-ass monsters being the hyper-rich, powerful nations that use their overwhelming influence to try and destroy and control a much more underpowered nation where its people are caught in the crossfire of a battle that was never their fault to begin with. Suffering so the people in that much more powerful nation, the comparable monster demons, live an extremely comfortable life. Anyway, this is all, of course, before Norman reveals both the reasons demons eat humans in the first place, and the true history of the demon Emma had met earlier, Mujika. Her being considered from an evil, cursed bloodline that was banished from the demon society. Mujika, its last living member that stays on the run with her bodyguard, Sanju. The reason she was considered evil itself being, something. So far in the story, we've seen a few different types of demons, like the wild beast ones in the forests or civilized ones in towns. All of them having fairly different physical traits and appearances. Turns out, the reason for this is, well, you are what you eat when it comes to demons. Meaning that the ones who have eaten mostly human meat have become human-like, and the wild beast ones having survived on animals and scraps, losing their intelligence and becoming like the animals they ate. The higher quality human meat, the meat from places like Grace Field, being super beneficial for a demon and like giving them strength, brain power, nobility, and influence. This high quality meat system creating a royal caste in the demon world. Until this bloodline of Mujika's was revealed to not only be able to heal a demon, that blood kept them from having to eat humans to retain their humanoid forms, meaning that the farm system and human meat were, technically, not needed if they provided their own body's blood. Of course, this pissed off the royalty because their nobility was born from premium human meat. And if it was taken away, what separates them from a common demon? The royal families declaring the bloodline evil and trying to wipe them out. Mujika being not only the last survivor, but the possible last hope for the demon world to not rely on human meat. Emma wanting to find her and ask for help in ending this farm-based world, while Norman wants to straight up find and kill her, knowing that her blood could save the demon race if used against him and his rebellion. The two factions of Emma and Norman splitting and setting off on their own goals. Norman to set the demon world on fire for his family, and Emma to try and find a way to save both the world and, in a way, Norman himself. Because even if he has become a literal unstoppable force, Emma just wants her brother back to live with him, Ray, and the rest of the fucking cast. The ultimate best girl. Now, around here while reading and learning about Mujika's blood, I kinda looked off screen at a camera that's not fucking there like I'm an Office character and said, ah, okay, I too have read Tokyo Ghoul. Because I could kinda tell where the story was going to go with this question of, should we kill all the demons or is genocide wrong? And how it was going to try and resolve it with the introduction of Mujika's bloodline. This possibly just bypassing the need for human meat completely. And with that said, and the full basis of the final 4 volumes laid out, I do have some mixed thoughts on how Shirai brings it all together. So to bring Tokyo Ghoul back up, and there's some spoilers for it here, you can skip ahead to this time if needed. I did a video on it last year and talked about how it's a story that is about humans versus monsters, with the monsters themselves just being humans who are trapped in a bad spot, needing to feed on other humans to live. A lot of ghouls don't even want to eat human meat, but they literally have to or else they're gonna die. It's their only food source. And despite them being human in a way, they do have wild-ass hardening blood powers that turn into violent weapons. So a big question there is, how do you find a way to coexist with a species that looks at you like food? Them being built with wild blood powers that can wipe you, a normal dude, out in seconds. How do you form those relationships, and how do they affect the world around them? And at the end of the day, the solution there kind of is just, oh, we got synthetic meat, that's good enough now, and that doesn't really answer it. It's instead just kind of choosing to give any reason for a happy ending to happen. So when Mujika was brought back in with her special blood, I kinda knew that's what we were doing here. And even if I do understand why Shirai chose this path, because it is a really hard question to answer, it still is a bit of a cop-out. Like, this is the classic X-Men mutant debate I also talked about in that Tokyo Ghoul video, where a huge part of the X-Men as a franchise is the racism mutants face and how it hurts them, despite being normal people technically, just like their haters. Except the problem is, mutants do have things like I-beam powers, Phoenix God space powers, all the bullshit Legion can do, and Magic herself was raised by the devil. Like, it's hard to fault your average dude for being somewhat nervous about a person that can do this. And it's the same argument here with Promised Neverland in a way. So it just being resolved by going, oh nah, we got some blood now, it's all cool, don't worry about it, is a little bit of a letdown, but what can you do, I guess? This is a pretty deep question for a Shonen Jump manga. Oh, and the X-Men video is happening one day. I'm reading through Onslaught now and got a few more years to read through first, but it's coming, I swear, it's coming. It's gonna be fucking long, too. Also, since Tokyo Ghoul is already on my mind, shout out Aishe, a character who reminds me of someone like Amon and his evil priest dad in TG. This badass wolf master who was actually stolen from a production line as a baby by a demon, being raised pretty much like their own child until Norman's crew busted in, killing that demon parent and, in their eyes, freeing Aisha from a demon that was keeping her as a pet. The now orphaned girl swearing to kill Norman herself one day, obviously being an example of that human-demon coexistence Emma is fighting for. One that was taken away by humans and not demons. Adding a little other dynamic to the moral battle to consider, even if it is a completely individual and special case. This is all to say that, while I don't disagree with Emma and her worldview, it is a very naive way to think sometimes, because unfortunately, total peace just doesn't work. And where I still think characters like her or even Thorfinn are great examples of finding a path of conversation and non-violence, that being their way to move forward in the world, it can come off short-sighted in the, unfortunately, very awful and very shitty real world we live in, where the good things just kinda seem to happen less and less nowadays. I can't blame them for wanting that perfect world, and seeing them defy the odds to achieve it rules. But I know the world well enough to know that that isn't just how it goes. And in some cases, it's arguably for the better that a more forceful outcome was reached. Now, with that said, and it sounding like I'm sitting here going, yes, war is good, which is not the case, I don't have any real issues with the ending itself and how it plays out. Be it Emma's idealism or the otherworldly spiritual stuff, yeah, all that is great in my eyes. That chunk where Emma and Ray get lost in like the fourth dimension or some shit and have to reform reality with their thoughts was so cool. That's my type of manga right there. And I know it's super different in tone from where the series had started. This stressful and intense battle for survival, introducing all these otherworldly elements to the story, absolutely turned some people off. But brother, it had me pumping my fist. I love it. I also think Norman's mental struggle between the path he's chosen and his old friends is a really good one. He was always shown from early on to be someone that could be ruthless and manipulating in the way he thinks, but at the core, he was always most concerned about his family, about making sure Emma was happy. So him becoming an almost mythical figure to fight for the kids' freedom totally makes sense because, at least in his eyes, he's saving the lives of his friends and is willing to do whatever it takes to obtain that goal. It's no surprise that after the time skip when some designs change, Emma and Ray look largely super close to how they did before, and Norman has instead grown up much more. Him almost now looking like the silhouettes of who we would expect William Minerva to be. The person who originally was the kid's light to look forward to that Norman has become. Those months since he had left the farm having changed him so much, but still able to grab back onto the person he was, to instead choose living with his family and just getting the fuck out of here, man. Fuck all this, who cares? And I think that makes total sense. He's still just a kid and he has a chance to go live with the people he loves. There's nothing wrong with that. Fuck you, fight me if you disagree, I don't care. Anyway, to bring back up my point from the start of the video with spoiler culture and how online conversation can change your perception on a series before you even start it, that was something I had to deal with for Promised Neverland, going back like years before even starting the series. During those early chapters and through to the Goldie Pond, the talk I saw online was more just about how good the series was or how it kept subverting expectations, and was one of the best things in Jump at the time. But after the time skip and when the plot shifts to focus on Emma stopping Norman and finding the 7 walls, it was like the 7 spoiler walls were blown the fuck out because people just loudly posted online about how they were not happy in this final arc. saying that Emma was a bad character for loving demons, how the story was mid now, how the God Seven Walls stuff was out of nowhere, and Shirai didn't know what to do after Grace Field. People were just out of nowhere super upset and posting spoilers with no filter. And honestly, it kinda soured the online conversations about the series. Most people saying whatever they will and ending the thought with, oh, the ending is bad and the last arc sucks and the anime is one of the worst animes ever. Like, I feel like those points, no matter what, get brought up when Promised Neverland is in the conversation, and that's just so unfortunate. Real shit though, some people just had some fucking bad takes on the story in general. The author had no idea what to do when they escaped from the farm and just wrote whatever. Shut the fuck up, dummy. If you had any reading comprehension at all, you can really obviously see how much of the series was completely planned out from the start. Sure, an author can add things in or change them up as they go, but acting like the story wasn't going to end up somewhere like here is fucking dumb. Shut up. Anyway, over time, I've personally got to where this type of shit online largely means nothing to me. If I want to read something, I will. That's it. But I can't lie and say it didn't change the way I read Promised Neverland. Like the whole story, I was analyzing Emma, how she reacted to new situations, and eventually, if her logic made sense on being anti-demon genocide. And in my eyes, even if you or me disagree with both Emma and how the story treats the demon race at the end, it's just completely wrong to say that this isn't who Emma always was, and that this kind of conflict wasn't always where the plot would end up. Emma would never approve of a genocide. Not back on the farm, not during Goldie Pond, and not now after coming so far to find God. And even if I don't think the conversation itself is perfectly handled in this final arc, I do think it's in line with the characters and their hearts, so I really don't mind it that much. Even when Andrew, that Ratri clan assassin, shows back up with his face blown out and having killed so many of Emma's friends, she still can't pull that trigger right away because taking a life, even one of a human that completely deserves it, is hard to do. And I can't fault her for not wanting to pull that trigger on an entire species. Is she overly idealistic? Yeah, absolutely. Would her ideals themselves work in the real world without more in-depth discussion and solutions? No, probably not. But there's nothing wrong with wishful thinking, especially for a literal child who exists in a kid's magazine, so I can't really hate it. That line about her being happy if Mujika was the one that ate her is dumb. I would not be thrilled about anyone eating me personally. You do you, Emma. As for the actual ending outside of that moral dilemma, the collapse of the Ratri clan, Peter's dumbass, and the kids going to the human world, it's all a fairly standard fairy tale story ending. But it's not one that I really get upset at or anything. I think the backstory of the Ratri clan is actually really good, them being the descendants of a rebel leader against the demons who ended up betraying his human friends and made that promise with the demon queen, setting the farm system into motion and forced to oversee the human-demon trade for the rest of time by Lord God Garble Name himself, it being both their freedom and their bloodline curse. It's an interesting way to frame up everything that had been built for this world. And even if the story spends no time really explaining how that clan functions inside and outside of the demon world, I think Peter's role in the story is solid, even if he's like a total fucking loser. One thing though, with the collapse of the Promise, the demon race just immediately accepting to end all farms and becoming benevolent goes back into that cop-out ending with Mujika's blood. And overall, it's just pretty silly, I can't lie. It's an excuse to wrap things up on a positive note. All of the demons going, oh, we don't have to eat meat anymore. Okay, I guess we're fine. That's fine, it's all good. I mean, I feel like there'd be a little more discussion, but whatever. It doesn't devalue how we got here enough in my eyes to ruin that journey. I do feel like the demon characters, their clans, and the queen herself could have used more time in the story to help establish their society a bit better, especially when such a large part of the story is about wanting you to consider if demons are worth existing with. It is extremely funny that one noble clan said, hey, maybe we should share our meat supplies with poor demons, like we're having a food crisis and the people are suffering. And the other nobles literally went, alright, you gotta go, and banished that whole family from society. Some real American Supreme Court insider trading shit, but with human kids being the currency. So yeah, actual American politics now, I guess. Will say, I think Isabella gets a bit too much redemption in my eyes. I don't blame Emma or the other kids for being sad at her death, but it goes a little hard to try and make you reading it sad, and I sure as fuck didn't. She ran that kid farm for years with no problem. I'm sorry, I can't feel bad for her. Also, Duke Luvis surviving Goldie Pond was goofy too. It felt like Shirai wanted to try and absolve the kids of as much demon killing as possible, and that was a little unnecessary because bro 10,000% had it coming. As for Emma and the kids making it to safety in the human world, them living together even if Emma's price for the promise was losing all of her memories, unable to remember her life before now, I think it's pretty solid. They found happiness, and even if it came at a cost, they found it together and changed their worlds for, objectively, the better. Sure, it's literally an all's well that ends well cap on a whole-ass war between the nature of humanity and how we coexist with not being the alpha animal, but for a Shonen Jump manga, that's plenty fine with me. Still like a 9 out of 10. Go watch my Beastars video if you want to see more of that convo. That's a series literally about how existing together between predator and prey is hard as fuck. And even if it does slip at times, it's still a really interesting take on that whole thing too. Now, despite Promised Neverland having an ending that online was not being celebrated by fans, one thing that people were still looking forward to was the second season of its anime. The first one having been done by Cloverworks Studio and, by all means, is a really stellar adaptation. Season 1 takes place totally in Gracefield House, the last episode being the kids escaping from the farm, and Season 2 starting in the forests on the run. And overall, even if I prefer the manga itself because Pazuka's artwork is near untouchable in my eyes, it's a great way to get yourself hooked into the series. Shit, call me crazy, but Season 1 is something I'd show to non-anime fans as their first anime. You know how you would like Death Note or Cowboy Bebop? It's something pretty much anyone could understand. It captures that tension, those second-to-second nail-biter moments extremely well, and knows how to use the medium of anime in a way that slowly builds suspense. Honestly, I'd really recommend it to pretty much anybody. And as you already know, the second season was not that at all. Being announced in early 2019, getting hit with delays from the pandemic, and finally dropping in late 2020, the second season from its first episode was off. The pacing was odd. Things seemed either skipped around or were out of place, and the general vibe from season 1 was missing. Which people online argue, it's because all the suspense was gone when they left the house. Well, fucking not in the manga, dummy, so obviously something else happened here. But it was hard to place exactly what was wrong at first. Then, as the kids find the Minerva bunker and set off and to begin what would be Goldie Pond, the anime just skipped it completely. The most popular, most big shonen battle arc of the series, gone. The thing that took Promised Neverland and kind of made it a smash hit and jump, the part of the story that basically no matter what, people will always point at and go, yeah, Goldie Pond went hard though, even if I didn't like the ending. Yeah, no, we don't need that part, I guess, fuck it. Just rewriting the plot to pick up after the time skip ending, deleting tons of characters from the story and launching right into the final arc itself, with these episodes just looking so flat. Like it had become a glorified slideshow, when over in the manga, the art had only gotten better in these chapters. So you get hit with the question of, what was even the fucking point here? Obviously the pandemic had taken its toll on production, but Cloverworks just choosing to chop the story down in size and adapt all 15 remaining volumes in 12 episodes is legitimately insane, and it almost seems more like Cloverworks itself just had no interest in even working on the series, but maybe for contractual reasons had to adapt the manga in full and chose to do it like that. This season, unfortunately, kinda really hurting the reputation of Promised Neverland, it having already taken hits from people who didn't like the ending. Which, knowing how good the manga is now after reading it, God, this sucks ass, man. How the fuck can you skip Goldie Pond? I literally do not understand at all. Who made that decision? Yeah, go ahead and watch season 1 if you want, but then just dip out of there and grab the volumes. It's still got a full in-print Viz run with a box set even if you're interested. Just go do that instead. Promised Neverland is way too good to deal with this shit-ass reputation it has now. Go read it. Go do it now. I don't care if I spoiled it all. Go. Thanks for watching, and sorry if some of this was kinda just rambling about Emma's idealism at times. The conversations online about her versus me reading the series and actually seeing how it played out in context ended up being such a big part for me, and that really came out here. Anyway, see you next time. Join that Patreon for stickers and say hi to Vash below in the comments. Later.